I'd like to introduce my friend Jack Enfield, MORryde. Jack, welcome to Florida.
Hi folks, my name is Jack and I'm with MORryde, and I want to thank Trish and Kelly for inviting us down. We met them last year at your rally in Goshen. And a couple things. Kudos to Alliance and kudos to your owners. The momentum you guys have, I will tell you, we work with every single manufacturer in the industry, and if they have any type of owners association, club, whatever, we typically try and work with them. And there's, you guys are being noticed. Let me just put it that way. There's one other manufacturer, you guys know Grand Design. They have an amazing association. As a matter of fact, this year MORryde will probably do 25 events with them. But you're the only other club that we're going to do more than one with. We'll be at your rally, and when Trish said, hey, will you come to Florida? I thought, wait a second, it's March, it's Tampa, and I live in Elkhart. And those of you, someone come up and said, where's Gary Wheeler? Well, Gary is Mr. MORryde. He's been around for years. And I said, well, it's March, it's Tampa, and you get, so you don't have the B team, you got the C team. It's stacked today. So if I were you, I'd be sitting here and I'd have a few questions. My first question would be, why? MORryde, huh? MORryde what? MORryde who? But then why should I sit in on a seminar on suspension systems and RV products? And then why should I buy from MORryde when there are all kinds of other companies in the industry and some of them are really big? So what we're going to do today is we're just going to spend a few minutes and we're going to talk about the whys. And when it comes to products, we're going to talk about what is it does it do, and what does that mean to you, because that's the most important thing, is that what does that mean to you? Before we get started on that, though, let me get to know my audience a little bit, okay? So, who came from the furthest north? Okay, where'd you come from? Massachusetts. Anybody beat Massachusetts?
New York, but we're not here with a camper, so.
Okay. So, Chick-fil-A, sandwich and fries. Can you pass it back? Okay, so who came from the furthest west?
I drove out from Hawaii.
Hawaii. Okay, just for creativity, you get to Okay, who came from the furthest west?
There's California back here.
California. Who's California?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Snooze, you lose on that one. Okay, anybody else? Can anybody beat Arizona? Okay, Arizona, Chick-fil-A. Pass that back. Okay, so Alliance is relatively new. So who has the absolute newest coach? Like who just bought one? Okay, when did you buy yours?
A month ago?
A month ago.
February 21st
At the Tampa show. Okay, February 1. Wait, Tampa show's not February 21st. Nice try. That's all right, January 21st.
I still think it's July being done.
Yeah.
She got one.
When did you buy it? Tampa. And yours was after Tampa?
We picked it up in Ohio, yeah.
Okay. And if you haven't, it's too bad, because did you guys at the rally, did you see their unit with their CrossFit gym and everything? That was the coolest thing. Okay, so who has the oldest? Who has the oldest Alliance? Okay, when is yours?
Last one has been there 95. That is pretty cold.
Okay. Can you guys pass that back?
Yeah, 95.
Okay, so that helps me. I know most of you, how many of you are Paradigm owners? Valor owners? Avenue owners? No Avenue. Okay, all right, that helps me. Okay, so we're going to spend just a few minutes today. We're going to talk about what and why. Because really the question you asked, why should I sit here? Why should I know that? So RVs come in all shapes and sizes. I told you that we deal with about every manufacturer, from literally the smallest lightweight single axle trailer all the way up to the largest fifth wheel. And yesterday I was on the phone with a guy who makes massive, tiny home, but not tiny fifth wheels. I mean, you look at he's a chef, and it's not a fifth wheel. It's a tiny home, except it's a gigantic 45-foot tiny home. We deal with Class A, B, C, D, so just about everybody in the industry. So RVs come in all shapes and sizes. RVers come in all shapes and sizes. We've noticed a huge shift in the last couple years. So how many of you are now full-time RVers? Okay, keep your hands up. How many of you are full-time RVers but are not retired? You're working. Okay, so I was at, you can put your hands down, I was at an event in Myrtle Beach. There were about 125 people in the seminar, and I said, okay, how many of you are first-timers? Half of the people raised their hand. Wow. How many of you are working remotely? 75% of the people there raised their hands. I promise you, 10 years ago, that was not the case with RVers. The demographic in RVers on fifth wheels was 55 and older. Many of them retired, so it is totally shifting. Okay? So RVs come in all shapes and sizes. RVers come in all shapes and sizes. So there's all kinds of different opinions. But I can get RVers to agree on two things. Okay? Two things. Okay? How many of you will do a double negative? How many of you would disagree with the statement that roads are rough?
Any hands up?
Okay, so now, here comes the disagreement. Tell me the roughest road in the country. Okay, so I heard 10 Louisiana, 95, where else?
The Alaska Canadian Highway is the roughest road.
Alcan Highway, you're right. 65 through Birmingham. I hear 40 through Oklahoma a lot. I hear 80 through Pennsylvania. And then I have people that I think they just want to tweak me. They say 80 through Indiana. And I go, okay, it's rough, but it's nothing like I-10, right? Okay, so who was the first person said I-10 through Louisiana?
I think there were a few of us.
There were, so that earns a t-shirt. So why do I say I-10 through Louisiana? Because I grew up outside of Kenner. I grew up outside of New Orleans. So 10 is really rough. So roads are rough, right? Okay, the roughest road in the country you can all agree or disagree with, okay? The next thing, how many of you, this is where everyone should raise their hand, from the time you were this, have heard the phrase, a house is only as strong as its foundation. Okay, I think you were first, okay? House is only as strong as its foundation. I mentioned I grew up in outside of New Orleans, in Kenner, okay? As a matter of fact, a few years ago they had a hurricane and it literally went right through the subdivision that I used to live in, out by Lake Pontchartrain. So if I were to take you to where I grew up, and you would notice two things. If we walked into that subdivision, about every subdivision around it, we'd walk in, we'd be standing at the street, and you'd be looking at the house, and one of them is going to do this, and one of them is going to do this, and one of them is going to do this, and then we're going to walk inside, and we're going to go, and I'm going to say, okay, find my basement door. Guess what you're not going to find? Why is that? It's 3 feet below sea level, right? Okay, come to Indiana. Okay, come into most subdivisions up in northern Indiana, and we'll walk in, and I'll say, go find the basement door, and you'll go downstairs, and you'll have this amazing man cave, or this amazing entertainment room. Why is that? Because they can go down deep. They can put the foundation down deep. You go, Jack, why are we talking about Kenner, Louisiana, and 3 feet below sea level and foundations? Because a house is only as strong as its foundation. And what do you own today, more than ever? Your RV is a house on wheels going over rough roads. Okay, it used to be an RV was just kind of like a, just a nice thing for weekends and stuff. Today, it is a house. As a matter of fact, some of your houses on wheels are nicer than many of the stick-built homes in about every state you go into, because you've got all kinds of amazing electronics. And guess what? It's going over bumps that do this and this and this and this, and it takes a toll on it. So, quick question for you. How many of you remember the brand called Teton Homes? No way! That's crazy. Most of the time it's nobody, so I saw you, so you can t-shirt. And actually, I'll see if I can throw one to the back.
And you're lefty.
I'm a lefty. Okay, Teton Homes, for those of you who don't know, back in the late 1980s, early 1990s, they built high-end fifth wheels. So 30 years ago, they cost between $80,000 and $100,000. Wow. 30 years ago, okay? So I was this young, snot-nosed kid, and I went to a Teton Owners Club, and I was invited there to do a speech, and I was following a seminar, and I was following the axle manufacturer, okay? Dexter Axle. not to name names, but Dexter Axle. And so I was there, and I'm this snot-nosed young kid. I'm going like, okay, I'm going to speak to people, and am I going to be nervous? And I listened, and Teton had just introduced a series of floor plans. Triple axle, rear kitchen. Normally there's a groan with that, okay? I'll tell you why there's a groan with that. I sat there and listened, and the owners were just a little bit agitated. It's like, what's going on? Well, their ceramic tile floors were cracking. Things were being really messed up. So I sat there going like, oh. And they were asking the guy, and he wasn't a sales rep, he was more of a technical person, and he really didn't have any answers. See, what they were using, it was a torsion axle. Now, a torsion axle, what that is, it has rubber, it's rubber cords, and the way it works, it's called rolling compressive resistance. It just moves like this, back and forth, back and forth. It doesn't really travel a whole lot, it just moves back and forth. And so I sat there going like, wow, ceramic tile floors breaking, and they were not happy, because you can imagine if you spent $100,000 on a new coach and your floor was cracking, and the manufacturer, the rep, really had no answer. And so I thought, oh boy, I got to follow him. And then I thought, oh boy, I got to follow him. And then I thought, oh boy, I got to follow him, because they were not only were they breaking ceramic tile floors, they were breaking dishes, and they were breaking glasses, and chairs were tipping over, and things were falling over, and they were just upset. And so I got up there again. I'm this late 20-something snot-nosed kid. I got up there, introduced myself, and I said, okay, guys, I heard you got some problems. And I said, I can guarantee you, I can pledge to you, I can promise you that you will never, ever, ever break another dish or glass as long as you own your RV if you have MORryde suspension. Got quiet like that. The eyes got big, the mouth opened up. Remember, they're breaking floors. And I said, go to paper plates and paper cups. And I said, the problem is not your dishes. The problem is not your cups. The problem is what's happening to the structure of your unit that you can't see. You can see the dishes, but you can't see where the floor is attached to the frame. And you can't see, if you pull the trim back, you can't see what's happening to all the connections and stuff. And some manufacturers put big trim on there. Why do they put big trim? So they cover up things that don't fit very well. And doors and cabinets over time aren't going to quite shut as much. So why should you listen on seminar? Because you have a house on wheels going over rough roads, and the foundation of your house really, really, really matters. Now I want to commend Alliance. One of the things they did before they ever got started is they did surveys of owners, and they made some little decisions on the running gear that are kind of big decisions, and part of it involves MORryde. So what is the suspension system? Well, the suspension system is what absorbs the shock. Think about it this way. If I were to stand up on a chair and I were to jump down, I probably don't want to be stiff-legged, right? Because it's going to jar me. If I were to jump, I want to land like this. I want flexibility, right? I want to cushion the shock. Well, suspension systems are the cushioners. What they do is they travel. So the conventional leaf springs on an axle, what they do is you have an axle that goes side to side, and you have a hanger, and then you have a leaf spring, and you have a leaf spring in the center. You have this dog bone, it's called a rocker, and it rocks back and forth. And the conventional springs in the RV industry travel about 2 inches from unloaded to max travel. So what that means is if you hit a bump that's more than that, and the reality is after you load it up, that 2 inches becomes 1 inch. So you really only have about an inch left. Well, if you hit a bump that's more than an inch, you're going to do this. And the shock is going to go from the ground, and it's going to bypass the suspension, going to go the frame to sidewall, the opponents, the contents, and everything inside the coach. So that's what's going to absorb it. That's why you break dishes and why you break plates and ceramic tiles crack, because we're not absorbing the shock down here. So what are some upgrades that are out there? So the first upgrade that's out there, MORryde has it, other brands have it. It's called a center equalizer, and it's a rocker. And we have a catalog, and you can look inside of it. And basically, it uses rubber to cushion and absorb road shock. Now, the MORryde one is unique as well because it has a travel slot. Now, remember, I told you that 2 inches of travel is what is conventional. So what we want to do is increase the travel, okay? So, rocket science question, right? So we have the CRE 3000. So who wants to guess how many inches of travel?
3.
Who said that first? Yeah, sure. 3 inches of travel. So what does that mean? Instead of hitting a bump like this, now we're going to be able to absorb more shock. Guess what Alliance used from day one? the MORryde CRE 3000. Now the other thing that Alliance did that actually was ahead of just about most manufacturers, if we can find my little bag, is they look, and there are some what they call attaching parts kits. And it's a shackle bracket. Okay, the shackle bracket looks like this, and the leaf spring eyes go through it. What happens is there's a plastic bushing there. And so what happens over time, and these are made by Dexter and Lippert, what happens over time is there's a bolt, and that as that plastic bushing wears out, it's just doing this back and forth. Now you really can't see it very well here, but this top one is supposed to be round, and it's not round anymore. But you can't see it because it's covered up with the bolted nut. And this is no big deal, and it's no big deal, and it's no big deal, and it's no big deal until when? Until it's a big deal, right? And when it's a big deal, this is broken down. So Alliance, kudos to them. From day one, they went to this, okay? 1/2 inch instead of 1/4 inch, okay? Bronze bushing instead of plastic bushing, and greasable bolted web bolt. So kudos to Alliance from day one. Now I go to most owners clubs and most events and seminars and rallies, and they do this. And then I asked them, I said, okay, so when you're down on the side of the road, what's the first thing you're doing? You're grabbing your phone and you're calling, your road service. Why? Because you're not going anywhere, okay? I said, how much do you think parts cost would be on a 2-axle trailer for this, for the entire running gear? $100. $10? $10?
But what was the question?
How much do you think a parts kit would cost to upgrade from 1/4 to 1/2 on a 2-axle trailer?
$3.
Sometimes people tell us $200, $300, $350. How much would you have been willing to spend to not be broken down on the side of the road? Right? The kit is really retail. It's about $119. Now at rallies and stuff like that, it's about $100. So do you think you'd spend $100 to give yourself a stronger foundation? The good news for you is Alliance did that from day one. I mean, kudos to them. So they've done some really nice things, the MORryde Series 3000 and the heavy-duty web bolt kit. If you have friends and neighbors that don't have, they have a, what do you call them, SOBs, other brands?
Yeah.
Tell them about that, because it's a great upgrade. Okay, so what else can you do though when it comes to foundation? Well, if you were to take a video underneath your unit, what you'd find, if you put it on the frame, you're going to find that when you're going down the road and you're turning back and forth, that frame is flexing like this. It's back and forth, back and forth. Now, every manufacturer puts cross members about every 48 to 52 inches. Now, sometimes a little bit further than that because there's holding tanks or whatever. But even still, what's happening is it's flexing back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And so, MORryde came out with, after talking to dealers, if you've ever had a hanger that's broken, okay, and what happens is that hanger just off the side, or if you've ever had a cross member break, and you go to a dealership, they might have a welder and they might not. If they don't have a welder, they have to bring in a mobile welder. And so we were talking with dealers and we said, what would make your life easier? And when we talked to consumers, what would make your life easier? And so we came up with what is called an X-Factor cross member. And it goes to wherever the hanger is. So the hanger, it bolts in and goes side to side. And so you can put one where the center axle is, because that's where the most stress is. And then sometimes you can put it on the front, the rear, wherever. But what it does is it reduces the strain on the frame by about 90% of that attachment. So what we're doing is we're making that foundation stronger and more robust. Now, it can be added to about any fifth wheel and travel trailer. And the cost is about $150 to $170. And again, it's bolt on and it's kind of universal. One SKU fits pretty much anything. So that's an upgrade. No manufacturer does that from the factory, because they just put it on the frame as is. So it's a nice upgrade. Why do I share that? Because we run into people all the time and they'll call us up and they'll say, hey, I want 3 of those. I said, why do you want 3 of those? Because I was down on the side of the road broken and I want to replace it. If you're going to replace it, the center axle is a great one. And then some people go to the rear and they go to the front, but you can put cross members and make it stronger. So I run into people though that also say, okay, so if 2 inches is good and 3 inches is better, do you have a even better unit? You know, some manufacturers have all kinds of brands, and what they do is they go, okay, here's the base, and then you got the next level up, and you got the next level up. Same thing with our veers. Sometimes you want a little bit better. When it comes to suspension systems, we want to give you choices. So we have the CRE 3000, okay? And then we said, what could we do to go the next level up? Well, we said, let's come up with a kit that includes a cross member to really strengthen it side to side so you get stability. And then let's come up with a kit that gives you even more inches of travel. So we have what is called the SRE 4000. Okay, so how many inches of travel? I can't even give a t-shirt for that, right? So 4 inches of travel. So why do that? Because some people just want a little bit better. Some people say, hey, I'm going to be going on longer road trips. Hey, I'm going to tackle I-10. Hey, I'm going to tackle 80 through Pennsylvania. The SRE 4000 is just the next level up. Now, you guys already have the 3000 on your unit, so kudos to you. If I were at an owner's event and they didn't have it, the 3000 is about $250 retail. The 4000 is about $500 retail. So just, again, gives you a sense of comparison. Now, some of you, your dream is to drive from Pensacola to Houston back and forth, back and forth, back and forth all the time. Or it's to go the Alcan Highway, and you just say, you know what? Or maybe some of you have had a problem, and you've been down the side of the road because you've had a bent axle, or you've had broken leaf springs, or you've had something. And so there is a suspension out there that's used on some of the high-end brands, and we've started doing retrofits. It's called the MORryde Independent Suspension System. You say, what is that? Well, we call it the IS. So what is the IS? So the IS is the suspension product. It's not for everybody because it depends on how you use your RV, but it's gaining in popularity. So what is it? Well, we throw those axles and the leaf springs, we literally throw them away. And when I say throw them away, they literally go into a dumpster. And then what we do is we said, well, if 2 inches is good and 3 inches is better and 4 inches is better yet, what if we had a 5.5-inch suspension system? And what if the tires weren't connected to each other? So if the right tire hit a bump, usually with every other unit, the left tire is responding because it's got an axle and they're feeling it together. So this hiccups, this burps, they feel it back and forth, back and forth. If we make it independent where this hits a bump and this doesn't even know it, so all of a sudden you hit railroad tracks and you're doing this instead of together. So if we had a 5.5-inch travel, we had independent wheel action. And if we had a heavy-duty gas hydraulic shock absorber that kept that tire from hopping, because that tire is a basketball, right? You bounce it, you hit a bump, and then what happens? There's a lot of residual energy. And what if we could control that? And then what if instead of a 3-inch wide spring hanger, we could do one that's about this long? Wait, wouldn't that be stronger? So we have the independent suspension system. It's the MORryde IS. It's used on some of the high ends, like DRV, like New Horizons, RV Factory, Riverstone. It's being used more and more and more in the aftermarket. As a matter of fact, we went to your Alliance rally, I think it was last May, and just since May we've had 20 Alliance owners make appointments to come to our factory to have the independent suspension system. Dave is here. Dave is coming in June. So why is it gaining in popularity? Why is it? It's been out for a long time. What happened? Well, it's an amazing product. As a matter of fact, the snot-nosed kid who told you you'll never, ever, ever, break paper, break dishes and cups, I can tell you the IS is the best performing suspension on the market. You say, yeah, you're paid to say that. Okay, great. Okay. So how many of you know Changing Lanes? You guys watch the video Changing Lanes? Okay. So Changing Lanes, if you have it, watch the video. It's on YouTube. It's a couple. They own a Grand Design, Momentum, toy hauler. She was in marketing. He worked for a tech company, and she had some physical things. And about 2 years ago, they just decided. I mean, they were not RVers, and they just got rid of it and bought a 40-foot toy hauler for their very first RV and went on the road full time. Who does that, right? And so we met them at a campground.
Yeah, everybody.
Okay, never mind. Rewind, forget that. Yeah. So we met them because we had heard about their YouTube channel. And we thought, okay, cargo tray. And did them side by side because he wanted to be able to access all of his space more effectively. Well, that video went out, and within literally a month, we started getting, well, actually within a day, we started getting all those emails. And so we brought him back for the independent suspension system. So they have a triple axle toy hauler. So we had an idea, because people have done videos before. We said, what if we videotaped inside a unit? Because nobody's really done that. And you don't ride back there, so you don't know what's going on back there. But we said, what if we could show the difference? So they said, hey, great idea. And Chad's going like, this is cool. I mean, if you know him, he's techie. And he said, I got this accelerometer on my phone. I'll put it on here. We'll get all this data. And so we said, okay, so let's do this. So we set up the video, and we go in the back, and there's Tara, and she's got the little little dog Daisy, who's just this little yipper about like this big, and so she sits on the sofa over here, and Chad goes over to the table and he takes out his phone and puts on there. The videographer goes here, and then I stand out of sight, and we go on our first test ride, and it's about 20-25 minutes. And I wish we could, you don't know that you need this, but you need this. You need a stove that doesn't rattle, because they rattle like crazy. And the pendant lights are swinging all over the place, and you're hearing stuff, and that dog, Daisy, was freaking out. As a matter of fact, for 20 minutes, all Tara did was, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay, calming the dog. And, you know, Chad's excited, I'm out of sight watching, going like, okay, this is interesting. So we bring them back, we go do our retrofit, we go do the upgrade. 3 days later, we go out, Daisy and Tara take their spot, Chad gets his accelerometer out, I go out of sight, the videographer goes, and we take off. And guess what happens? Daisy lays down and goes to sleep. And so, the best salesperson for the IS suspension system is not Jack Enfield, it's not Gary Wheeler, it's nobody at our factory, it's Daisy the dog. And if you don't believe it, go watch the video. It makes an amazing, amazing difference.
What axle did you replace?
So they had 7,000-pound triple axles. And
Dexters?
Dexters. And so we took those off and we put our suspension system on. Now why do that? Because you have a house on wheels going over rough roads and you're hitting bumps like this, and we're going to cushion absorb the shock. And I can't even tell you how many people have come up to me at a show, at an event, at a rally, and say, oh, you know what? We were in a hurry and I forgot and I left my bowl of cereal on the counter. I said, do not do that. Oh, I left the coffee cup. Oh, do not do that. Guess what? It did not move. Don't do that anyway. Don't leave stuff out. But you're not going to break dishes. Now, roads are rough, and some of them you're just going to hit, and it's going to feel like you're shaking the thing to pieces. We're just going to deal with it way better than anything else. We cannot smooth out the road. We can just deal with it much more effectively. The IS suspension system is a flat-out amazing product. Now, it may not be for you. You might not use your RV where you go, hey, I'm just going from here to there and I don't need it. But you may be going on I-10, or you may be going to the Alcan, or you may be going out west, or you want to go to Mexico, or you know what? We've had people come to us with 20-year-old units and say, okay, I cannot find a better floor plan. This is my last RV, and they go and spend the money on a 20-year-old RV to make it the way that they want it. And then we have some people who literally, it doesn't even get to them, it just comes from the factory to us before they ever take delivery of it, and it gets retrofitted. So that video hit, and oh my goodness, it was crazy. Like, it was crazy. All of a sudden, we had no idea. Today, I think they've had about 225,000 views. And does anybody here, are you on social media where you are like an influencer? I know you guys are. Okay, so what would you do to get 225,000 views? That's pretty cool, huh? Yeah. That's like, we can't get 225,000 views with our stuff. I mean, we can't even touch that. But what happened is people started calling. And so we have people coming from all over the country, like all over the country. Now you're probably asking the question, okay, first off, what does it cost? And where can I get it done? So on a 2-axle trailer, if you want just a MORryde suspension system, like just the MORryde suspension, it's about $2,500 an axle. So 2-axle trailer, about $5,000. 3-axle trailer, just under $8,000. Now some people want to do disc brakes with it, and we'll talk about disc brakes in a second, but just the MORryde is around $2,500 an axle. That's parts, labor, alignment. We're going to set the toe and camber of your wheels. That's everything. And it takes a couple days to do it. Now, right now, there's 3 places in the country. Elkhart is the most prominent one because we're going to do it the best. We're going to do it well. We're going to do it the most economically. But not everybody can come to Elkhart. So there's a place in Oregon called Henderson's Lineup, and then we just set up a place in Kansas called New Horizons. They actually build custom units that takes the MORryde, and they said, I'm already installing MORryde, why can't I do it in the retrofit? So we've set them up because we have confidence they'll treat people the way we'd like them to be treated. So people come from all over the country. Okay, so prior to Chad and Tara coming into our place, we were doing five suspensions a week. It takes a couple days, so we had these bays, and all of a sudden we got called. Okay, so today, if you had to guess the first available appointment. Now, by the way, we've gone from 5 a week to 10 a week, so we've doubled our capacity. Okay, so if you had to guess when the first appointment available is, offer a t-shirt, No pressure.
November.
Okay.
November.
November,
July.
October,
December.
July,
February
December.
23.
February 23, September. Yes. No, in the back. I want you to guess.
Well, I guess my original 8 weeks was not.
Yeah, he guessed 8 weeks. No. We can get a t-shirt. Okay, you said February of 23? It's actually January of 23. Wow. Is that crazy?
Yeah.
That's like stupid, right? We are totally uncomfortable with that. Now, earlier this year, or end of last year, we weren't doing 10 a week. We were only doing about 6 or 7 or 8 a week. We said, okay, we have to increase space, because our waiting list was over 160 people long saying, I want to come sooner, I want to come sooner. And it's like 160 people long, it's not doable, right? So we increased our capacity, we whittled it down, and now we're booked out through. Now, what happens? You guys are RVers, so you know that you can be driving somewhere and guess what happens? The truck breaks down, right? Or I got an issue, or I got to go back home because of a family situation or whatever. Or, last year, COVID, right? Yeah. COVID happened. And so we get people all the time that we hate it, but they'll call us and say, hey, can I move my date? Can I reschedule? Okay, so that creates an opening. And once that opening is gone, then you never can reclaim it. So we have a list of people that we're working to. They say, hey, I'm flexible, I can come in quicker. So last week we had a lady who called up and we said, okay, January of 23. She's going like, But she said, hey, I am so flexible. And so we literally had somebody cancel and she was at our place, will be at our place within a couple days. So it's not always January 23. If you're flexible, we can work around you. But why do that? Why spend $5,000 or $7,500? So let's talk about disc brakes, okay? The vast majority, probably 75% of the people that come to our factory will upgrade to disc brakes. 20% already have it, and the other 5% don't know that they need it yet, okay? Right? I'm kidding, that was sarcasm, sorry. So last year at the Alliance Rally, I sat when you guys were listening to Jeremiah and Coley, right? And they asked you guys a little bit of a poll, and so the question was, how many of you would like to have disc brakes? So let me ask you guys, how many of you would like to have disc brakes in your trailer? Okay, that's way smaller, because last year it was most of them. So why disc brakes? And what are disc brakes? So disc brakes are making inroads at the manufacturer level. More and more.
How many people have it? It may not be that small.
Yeah, so how many people have disc brakes? Okay, there we go.
No.
That's good. Thank you. So more and more manufacturers are offering disc brakes. Why disc brakes? Disc brakes, you'll stop about 30% shorter. You won't have some of the maintenance and the noise. I mean, you've all been at the campground when somebody's backing in, it's 10:30 at night and they're backing in and you hear creaking and squeaking and those brakes are just howling like crazy. What are disc brakes? Disc brakes are like cars. It's disc pads, and literally you can stop about 30% shorter. Instead of using just an electric feed, it takes the electric feed from the controller and goes to a pump and then sends fluid to each of the wheels, and you'll stop when you want to stop, okay? How many of you have driven from Flagstaff down to Phoenix? Oh, you got to do that, okay? You got to do that. Flagstaff down to Phoenix. And then I'll ask you about disc brakes. How many have been done some of the in Colorado, some of the mountains, right? Okay. When you're going down, how much money would you spend to be able to stop when you need to stop? Right. Flagstaff to Phoenix, I'm nervous driving a car at 80 miles an hour going down because it's doing this and this, and it's like, okay, and what do you see about every couple miles? You see the truck runoffs, and you go like, okay, that's not good. Okay. Disc brakes are about that. It's about stopping when you want to stop. So a lot of people come to our factory and they'll do the IS and the disc brake. Cost about, on a 2-axle trailer, about $8,000, because it's a little over $3,000 for disc brakes, but it's an upgrade. Not everybody needs it. Many of you might be right for it though, because it really, really does a good job. Okay, so what else can you do to enjoy your RVing experience? Because if you asked us, MORryde, what do you do and why do you do it? Our job is to design products that allow you to enjoy your RV more so that you can enjoy the lifestyle more. I'm a little bit curious 2 and 3 years from now, because what's happened in the last 2 years is the RV industry has been on a rocket ship. It's attracting new and newer and newer people all the time. And you know what? RVing's not this easiest thing, right?
No.
It's not the simplest thing. And stuff happens. And so what's going to happen with that 30-something who's used to his Tesla, and he goes out in an RV and he's got hot water issues and plumbing issues and leak issues and slide out issues, and are they going to stick with it? We're going to find out. What we want is we want products that do a great job so that they can enjoy the RV. Because if they enjoy the RV, I mean, who wouldn't enjoy this, right? The pool and the sun and this and March, and so that's what we want. So we have a lot of other products to do that. So what's one? Last year at the Alliance Rally, we do, as a matter of fact, if you're going this year, we do on-site installations for different things. The most popular thing we did last year at the Alliance Rally was a pin box. You say, well, what's a pin box? So on a fifth wheel trailer, the vast majority in the industry have this pin. It's a steel pin and it goes into a steel hitch. So you have steel on steel, so it's rigid. So what happens is you have the truck and the trailer and you're towing back and forth, back and forth. And those road engineers have figured out how to put those expansion joints in just the right location so that when you're towing, you get jerking, chucking, bucking, and clunking back and forth, right? It's jerking, it's bucking, it's chucking, it's clunking. It's that transfer of energy from the trailer to the truck that's on a horizontal plane. Now, the vast majority in this industry are rigid, meaning they don't move, and that's why you feel it. And where you feel it is in the small of your back. You're driving like this, and you feel it right here. But you know who we talk to the most? Isn't the driver. We talk to the person who's over here. You know why we do that? Because the driver is looking in the mirror, looking this, and where's that semi, and what's the wind doing, and what's the person over here doing? They're like this, and they're going, make it stop, make it stop, right? Yeah, okay. It's the transfer of energy from the trailer to the truck that's on a horizontal plane. So there are some flexible pin boxes out there, and kudos to Alliance, they use a flexible pin box. It's called a Rotaflux. What is Rotaflux? Rotaflux takes that, remember I told you about that Dexter axle and that rubber compression cord? So instead of on an axle, they put it on the front of a pin box. And what it does is it moves about 1/4 of an inch, and it does, again, it's called rolling compressive resistance. It just does this, a little bit of pivoting back and forth, and it squeezes this rubber cord. What MORryde does, though, is we take those same rubber shear springs that go in the back and move like this, and we put it on the front, and it actually moves back and forth like this and like this. 3 inches back and forth and 1.5 inches side to side. So now what happens is when you come to that stop, you don't get that jerk. When you accelerate, you don't get it this way. It's much smoother. We can't make the starting and stopping go away. We can't make the road condition go away. We can just deal with it much, much smoother. So why do we do that? So that when you're watching in your iPhone, you're not doing it like this. Why? Because when you're towing, you're not worn out after just going 150 or 200 miles at the end of the day. Why do we do it? Because it just makes it more enjoyable. Where do you see a MORryde pin box today? If you go just like on the IS and you look at the DRVs and you look at the landmarks, and then there's brands like Momentum and Solitude and Jayco Pinnacle and the Bighorn that all use a MORryde pin box from the factory. Now the good news is you can get it in the aftermarket. And like I said, at the Alliance Rally, we actually ran out of them because we were going around to your sites and we were installing. And we can do that again this year at the upcoming Alliance Rally. We literally installed the campsite. At the normal price on it is around $850, but at a rally, it's usually less than $700. And we'll install it for free for you. So the pin box just does a great job of taking care of the jerk and the chuck and the buck and the clunking, because it just makes it more comfortable. So why do that? So you're not worn out at the end of the day. Do you have to have a MORryde pin box? No, the light world will not stop if you don't have a MORryde pin box on your RV. But if you want to enjoy it more and more, and I will tell you, if you have the combination of a MORryde pin box on the front and the IS on the rear, there is no better towing combination in the industry. It is flat out amazing difference. Gary Wheeler is our resident, and he's probably towed about 250,000 miles. We actually have 2 units, and he just tows to events and everything. And he would not tow a trailer without a MORryde IS or a pin box, because it makes it that much more comfortable. And he'll tow sometimes 8, 9, 10 hours a day, whatever the limit is with CDL, because he's going all over the place. Okay, so what? Yes.
So what does that do to the warranty? Because there's talk about you buy this hitch, you can't use it with this pin box because it voids a little different warranty.
Okay.
What does that mean when we change out that pin box from the Rotaflux to yours?
Okay, so great question on both the small level and big level. What is a warranty on MORryde? On a MORryde pin box, it's 3 years. On a MORryde IS, it's 5 years. Okay, on a SRE, and CRE it's 3 years. So we give you longer warranties than the manufacturer has. Usually Lippert on the frame usually is 1 year, sometimes 2 years. Okay. If you change out just the pin box, the warranty on the pin box comes to us, and the frame warranty stays intact. Everything else. So if it's a pin box issue, it's ours. If it's a frame issue, it's MORryde, or it's Lippert. So it won't change the warranty. If they tried to restrict it in the past, they kind of did that with some manufacturers. But again, so today, DRV, Riverstone, Heartland, all those use Lippert frames and put MORryde pin box from the factory. So they can't change the warranty, they can't restrict it because they're already putting it on from the factory with many manufacturers. Yes?
I talked to Lippert right after we pulled out line because I don't like pin box. Lippert told me if I changed to MORryde, it would avoid my frame run.
So we need to reach out together because your question, the Lippert is, so I just saw a Heartland, that's your frame, it's got a MORryde pin box from the factory, right? And every year we do thousands in the aftermarket. So I think that's just one of those things that's a deflection because legally they can't do that. There's it's called restraint of trade, they can't do that. But they're already putting on thousands. Every Grand Design Solitude and Reflection, or Solitude and Momentum, has a Lippert frame and a MORryde pin box. So are they?
I gotta go trade camper to get a pin box.
You gotta go where?
I gotta go trade it to another brand of camper and get a pin box.
No, we'll retrofit it at the Alliance Rally. We did it last year. We installed dozens at your rally.
Well, my concern was they tell me that they're going to handle my frame warranty if I should have a problem.
Yeah.
And I have
So
changed the
come
pin
see
box.
me and we'll reach out to Lippert because I know they can't do that. It's restraint of trade. And again, we do it thousands of times every year. Okay, so what are some other products that are out there that we do for the RV industry? So we do things like storage, we do things like flat screen TV mounts, and I'd encourage you to get a catalog. But I'd also encourage you, if you guys are idea people, okay, reach out to us. We work with inventors like every day of the week, and some of them have really cool ideas. Now, some of you guys think you have cool ideas, and it's not quite so cool. But
What was the whole reason behind discontinuing the enclosed tent for the toy outlet?
what was why we had what was called the Patio EX, and right now it's not available. Why? Because there's this was made by a company in Scotland, and you can't get stuff from overseas right now. With
So
any,
it is coming back now?
no,
No?
like we wanted to make some changes, and they told us they're so backlogged it would take them a year to implement the changes plus shipping time. Right now they're in Scotland. They have a factory in China that makes it. It gets shipped to us, and if we wanted, it'd be 18 months. So that's just it stinks. And that's why what you're seeing more and more, about 95% of everything MORryde does is made in our factories. We have 5 campuses, 15 buildings, so it's all US made because of stuff like that. We can't control. Yeah. Now I'm going to show you a couple products, one in particular that's not, so don't. But you'll get it when I show it to you. So a couple years ago, we had this idea. We did toy hauler patios, and people wanted to access the rear of the patio. So we had a step that went all the way to the ground on the rear of a toy hauler. And it was like really cool. And then we were at shows and rallies, and we would watch you guys go at a show or rally, and we would watch you walk into an RV, and then we'd listen to you, and some people were grabbing that grab hand up, and then they'd come off, and they'd get down, and then sometimes that first step was like this, and sometimes it felt like, a springboard or a diving board. And so we came out with steps that went all the way to the ground. It's kind of like those small airplanes, like I flew on one yesterday. You take this regional, and they open the door, and the door goes all the way to the ground, and you exit the steps. So we thought, what if we did that for entry levels on RVs? So in 2017, we approached a manufacturer and said, hey, I've got this great idea. What if we had steps that went all the way to the ground? They said, oh, that'd be great. That'd be so cool. We said, okay, so we need somebody to ride herd on it. We're going to have to lease a building, buy equipment, hire workers. We're going to sell it to everybody. but we'll give somebody a head start. And if you commit to our capacity, we'll let you have it until we increase our capacity. What's your capacity? We said 600 steps a week. They said, okay, we're in. We said, great. So we leased a building, we hired workers, bought equipment, and this was in like March and April, and come September, we're launching, and they're doing 200 steps a week. And we're going like, okay, guys, where's the 600? Well, it costs more money. And see, at the manufacturing level, I remember how I early on commended Alliance because they did little things like heavy-duty shackle kits and CRE 3000. In Elkhart, manufacturers, they kill us for a nickel. I mean, they kill us for a nickel. And so they said, well, it's more expensive, and dealers don't like it because it messes up their lot. So October comes, and we did 250 steps a week. We still have capacity for 600. So in January of 17, so this was 16, January of 17, we just went to shows and talked to you. And we took a display there, and literally all we did at the show is we had a step display, and we jumped up and down on the steps. And they said, you can't do that. And so we jump up and down again. You can't do that. And we just jumped up and down the steps. And then we'd say, now you do it. And they would go like, okay, I want those, I want those, I want those. So 5 years ago, the industry began to change, okay? And now, Alliance, they don't use our step, they use the Lippert step. So Lippert and MORryde both have steps out there. Today, if you had to guess how many steps MORryde has to produce a week, knowing that we are not the only producer. How many steps do you think? Remember, we built a building, or leased a building for 800. 800. 850. 2,000. 1,200. 1,500. 2,000.
10,000.
No. You were close. It's 7,000 steps a week.
Wow.
Actually, it's 7,500 a week. Is that crazy? So then what happened is that led to what else can we do? Now, again, we'd love to have Alliance steps, and if Lippert were up here, they'd tell you why their step is better. I can tell you why our step is better. I think our step's better, but they're good because they go all the way to the ground, right? So it's much better. But then we just listen to people like you. And people said, you know what, it's dusk, and I'm walking up, and wouldn't it be great if I could see where I was going, right? The very first steps had legs that went all the way out, okay? And then they said, oh, I stubbed my toe. What if the legs could go back in? So the next generation had the legs recessed. But then it was like, what if when I got within 5 or 6 feet, voila, a light came on, right? Wouldn't that be cool? Okay, so motion. Well, they were working. So, yeah, motion activated step lights. Battery powered. And so you go and get within 4 or 5 feet, and guess what? It comes on. How cool is that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the cool thing about these will fit on a MORryde step with a little bracket that fell out, just screws in, or it'll fit on Lippert steps because we put some 3M tape and you just do this at the bottom of their steps. And now, literally, you can put this on all 4 steps, on 2 steps, on 3 steps, and you get within 5 or 6 feet. I mean, how cool is that, right? So I was at a rally, an owner's event up in Idaho, and a guy came up and said, I want 6 of those. I'm going like, 6? You don't have a 6-step RV. What do you need? He said, come with me. So I walked with him, went inside his unit, went inside, and he opened up his pantry. And he said, my pantry's deep. And he put these in, so now he has motion-activated lights so we can see inside his pantry. It's like, how cool is that? We hadn't thought of that, but you guys did. So, motion-activated step lights. Again, even if you have a Lippert product, you can put these on.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so who has my influence in YouTube or Instagram or whatever? Who's an influencer here? Raise your hand. Just 2? 3? Okay, so guess a number between 1 and 250. 195.
194.
I knew you were going to do that. 17. 67 was the number, so step lights. Okay, so now you get within just a few feet. So then we had another guy come to us. So all of you have 5th wheels, right? Okay, so what, you have your 7-way cord, right? And you get to the campground and it falls to the ground, and what do you call that then? Well, still a cord, right? Well, now it's a
Freaking mass.
now it's a runway, right, for critters to get inside your unit, right? They will just run up it. And I was at a rally, and I said, okay, I heard this from somebody, and I just don't know, I need you guys to verify. How many of you have stuck your hand in the back of a pin box and felt a bird's nest?
Yeah.
Really? That's crazy. So, we came up with this. It's called a cord keeper. Okay? What is a cord keeper? So you take your 7-way cord, you put it here and you just wrap it, and it's magnetic, and now it fits on your pin box wherever you want it. So no more stuffing in the back. We've had a few people, anybody here stuff their cord back there and get an arc electrically? Okay, you did? Okay, that's no fun, right? So now you got this little itty bitty cord keeper, and it keeps the cord and no more critters in the ground. And now if you want to close off the back and no more bird's nests, you know, how perfect is that? Okay.
Awesome.
Since he did you by one, we can do this. Okay, so now one more. Okay. So how many of you have grandkids or kids that use your RV? Okay. How many of you hate walking? Everybody does this, so I can't. So everybody does the dance when they walk inside their RV, right? What's the dance? You go up the steps, you pull the door, you go down the steps, and you go back up the steps, right? Everybody does that.
I bought one of those
Okay.
to stop that.
So, what is this? This is the dance stopper. No, this is what we call a latch extender. How cool would it be for your kids if all they did is they reached up and they pulled the door and then they walked up inside? How cool would it be is if on a rough day, your back's hurting and you're not going up to go down, you're just pulling and walking up.
Or when you have groceries in your hand and you can pull it.
Or when you have groceries in your hand. Or so what a simple, easy, and it's extended latch.
Thank you.
So all of you influencers, you owe me a post now, okay?
Tonight, so we can come see it on your rig.
Yeah.
It's on my P90, so you can come see it there right now. A lot.
So simple things. So if you guys have ideas, now every one of these, not the lights, but we pay royalty to inventors, okay? Because it's a really cool idea. So let me tell you another one that we are probably most excited about. With your club, it's a little bit different. How many of you have a rear hitch on the back of your unit? Okay, raise your hands. Okay, anybody have just a bumper on the back of your unit? Okay, so, rear hitch or bumper. Now, in the RV industry, the reason you don't, RV industry has leveling jacks. Many of them are 6-point, which is what you have, 6-point hydraulic, okay? Some of them, some manufacturers have electric on the front, and then if it's a travel trailer, they'll have scissor jacks front and rear. So we hooked up with an inventor a couple years ago, retired San Diego police officer. I was at a rally in Colorado, and we just watched and listened to people. So like I told you, steps, people call them springboard, diving board, they hate them, right? So the other thing we heard is that at a campground, sometimes you're inside and one of you is sleeping and the other one is laying down and they get up and go to the bathroom and you say, who's the elephant in the trailer? Right? Stop walking so loudly, right? Or the kids, stop running. We're not running. It feels like you're running. Why? What's happening is when you raise your house on wheels up, you get some instability. Okay. So I watched this San Diego police officer and he was installing on site and I had people come up and they were just talking about how great his product was. And so I saw him, his name was Scott, and Scott, again, he'll talk to anybody. So I spent some time talking with him and just kind of filed it away. A few months later, was at another rally where Scott was, same reception. It was just like, this is amazing. And so I said, Scott, what are you doing with your thing? He said, I'm just loving life. You know, I'm an RVer, but not full time. He said, I developed this product back in 2008, 2009, because I hated it at the campground. We just felt, it was a windy day, because he lived in San Diego. I just felt every little movement. Denise would be lying down, and I'd walk through the trailer, and it would just, bug her. And so I designed a product just to take care of it. So he designed a product for fifth wheels and travel trailers. And then through our so I approached him and said, hey, MORryde wants to talk to you. We'd love to license and manufacture the product for you. And we'll enter an agreement and we can work together, but we think you're on to something really, really big. because all he was doing was rallies and a little bit of internet sales with not a very good website. And so he said, he just want to know what kind of people we are, whether he could trust us, and whether we could work together. And so we entered into an agreement with Enfield RV Products. And so for the last couple, it started with COVID, which threw it off a year, we've been doing a stabilizer. And what it does is it locks down laterally and provides, we call it X-brace, brace to side to side. For your crowd, if you have a rear hitch, so this is what we do at your rally last year, and when we go to campground, we'll go to anybody, any RV, and we'll push on it. For you guys, we would just go to the rear of your unit and we'd push on your unit. And I can probably make every one of your fifth wheels move just by pushing like this. Why? Because if you go to your rear tire and you step off, you're going to have at least 9 and maybe 12 feet of overhang. So that's this giant lever. And I can push, and I can make, and if your bedroom's in the back and you're laying down, you'll feel it. If your bedroom's up front, you'll feel it because this thing moves back and forth. So we came up with this X-brace stabilizer, and all it is, it fits into the receiver, and it's got a ratchet strap. And if I lock it down, I push on it, and then I tell it, whoever, the biggest guy here, the bulkiest guy, the weightlifter, I'd say push on it. And they'll wail on it, and they're going to get little to no movement. It is that amazing of a product. And we do it for the front if you've got electric scissor jack, and it's a cool new product. And it's got a price point of less than $200. And what does it mean? It just makes it more comfortable. We were at a rally in Myrtle Beach, and a customer came up to us, and he wasn't even part of the rally. He just heard that we were there, and he had a Rockwood travel trailer. And he said, "Oh, I really need to talk to you guys." I said, "Why is that?" He said, "My wife has migraines." And he said, when she has a migraine, I have to leave the trailer because I can't even breathe inside the trailer, and she feels everything. So he put it on front and rear on his travel trailer and was ecstatic. So that's another product that's in our catalog. And that's another great design that an owner came up with. So, stabilization, yes sir.
I've got one of those on mine, side 214, if you want to come.
Yeah, go push on it.
Yeah, I've got one on 163.
Yeah, it's just simple, easy.
It's so long, it's an amazing difference.
It's huge, huge difference.
Yeah. Okay, I owe t-shirts. Where do I have to throw it? There you go, there's one.
I also put a video on it last year.
Who was the fourth person? It is a product. Here's how good it is. Okay, if you're going to the Alliance Rally next year, reach out to us ahead of time and say, "Hey, I want it installed." We'll come to your site. And here's what we literally have done when we started with it. At every rally we went to, whether it was the rear hitch, the hitch is so easy, but on the front of a travel trailer, rear of a travel trailer, front of a fifth wheel, we went to the owners, we said, "Here, let's go to your unit, we'll push on it, and we'll put it on, and if you like it, we'll leave it on and you can pay for it. If you don't like it, we'll take it off. No harm, no foul." Okay? Guess how many we've taken off? 0. How cool is that to have a product like that you can just, I can stand up here and tell you, you will love it. It is cool. What's that?
Did you bring any products to this rally?
I brought 3.
Keep saying he's going. George has a video of it being put on his rig and my rig last year in Elkhart.
Yeah.
I've got the video so you can see the difference.
Yeah. It's just amazing, guys. And you know what? That wasn't our idea. It was a retired San Diego police officer. So again, if you have a great idea, reach out to us, because what we want to do is partner with people. So what else does MORryde do? We do sliding trays. As a matter of fact, Alliance uses a sliding tray. Why do you need a sliding tray? Because you know what? If you guys have pass-through storage, right? So how many of you thought that there were things you absolutely could not RV without? And you took them and you put them in the middle of your pass-through, right? And guess what you found out? Is I can live without them, right? Because who wants to access that stuff, right? So Chad and Tara, I told you about the very first video we did. So he came to our place, and again, I didn't know them. I met them at the Elkhart campground, and they came over, and I got really nervous because we opened up his pass-through area, and it was so organized. It was meticulous. As a matter of fact, he had taken wood and PVC pipe, and he, in the upper area, did cutouts to hang all of his power tools. I'm going like, we're going to mess this thing up royally for him. And he looked at it and he said, "Well, you can't fit one because, you know, on most fifth wheels, you got a rectangle that's through, but then you got this jagged area and you couldn't do this." And he said, "You know, it's not big enough. I don't want to give up my space." And we said, "Well, wait a second. Let's look at your unit." So it's 48 inches wide, but 26 of it went all the way through and made a rectangle. and the other went in about 46 or 48 inches. And we said, what if we did 26 by 90? And what if we did 26 or 9 by 48, something like that? We said, okay, so we did it. Watch his video. Go to YouTube and watch his video on changing lanes on the MORryde cargo tray. Because you guys remember the show Tim the Toolman Taylor, right? What would Tim do when he got all excited? Right? Okay, you'll watch Chad get excited about storage. And here's what you're going to find is that part, those things that you put in the middle of your pass-through that you couldn't live without, but you know you can live without because you never want to access, well, guess what? Now you won't be able to live without it because you'll be able to get it just by sliding out a tray. So Alliance uses a tray. We do all kinds of other things. In this catalog, we have things, in the beginning, it's steps, it's step accessories. As a matter of fact, who did I give the handle, the latch extender to? Okay, so, oh, hang on, you giving it back?
Well, I thought you wanted to.
No. Okay, so, at the rally, yes, by May, if you're at that rally, come see us. As a matter of fact, we might even send some notice about, we have the next coolest thing to get you in and out of an RV. That, in conjunction with that, is amazing. But even without that, you go like, this is the safest thing I've seen. And that's all I'm going to tell you, okay? It's really cool.
It's in the book already?
Nope,
Oh.
It's not in the book. So we have step accessories. We have stuff coming. The MORryde rubber pin box. Again, it's a great take care of jerking, chucking, bucking. The X-brace is there. So one of the other products, it's really, really, really cool. We have flat screen TV mounts. Some of them are used by Alliance. Why? You say, why? I already have flat screens. Well, sometimes you go like it doesn't have enough swivel or tilt. Or you know what, I'd love to put it in a new location. And so we have them all, and they're designed specifically for RVs. One of the other things we came up with, this is one from another owner, is cord reels. Okay, how many of you absolutely love to spool your 50 amp power cord? Yeah. If you're north of the Mason-Dixon line in the fall and you try to spool the cord, you go, what? It's frozen, right? So we have a cord spooler, so you can spool up to 50 feet of your power cord. Alliance does some cool things. As a matter of fact, they are the first manufacturer. Well, I'll come back to it. They were one of the first manufacturers and to use power cords. They also were the first in the storage box there where we put a compressor. As a matter of fact, for the longest time, they were the only one doing it. So again, cool things because people have great ideas. Sliding trays. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of products. If you're interested in MORryde stuff, this is from eTrailer. This is a 10% discount. eTrailer is great. They have great videos. They also pay freight, so now you can get discounts. I started by telling you I was going to answer a few questions of why. You know, why sit in on a seminar in suspensions? Why? Because you live in a house on wheels going over rough roads. Why should you care about products? Because you really want to enjoy the RV as much as possible. Nobody wants to be down on the side of the road calling their service saying, please help me. Why do you want to consider an upgrade? Because you know what? You don't want to feel that rocking, that wind. Matter of fact, there's an article coming out on the Stabilizer. It's either RV Life or RV Enthusiast. He reached out to us, and he lives in Idaho, and he had a Keystone RV, and he said, I'm researching products. I'm going to write an article, and he said the winds are so bad. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. Do you have anything? And so we shipped him a front fifth wheel for electric and the rear hitch, and he wrote an article that's just amazing. Because he said, you took it, it's almost as if the wind's not blowing, even though the wind is blowing. Okay? Why? Because we just want to make it so you enjoy it more. But then the big question is, why MORryde? Okay? There's bigger companies out there. There's people that do all kinds of different products. Why buy from MORryde? Because we're you. What do I want in my personal life? I want to buy from a company who knows what they're talking about and who I can trust. And who's going to treat me well. Because if there's a problem, and when there's a problem. One of the things that Rob said that really, I sat back there, it resonated with me. He said warranty, yeah, there's warranty, but then guess what he said? He said, we're people too, and sometimes there's goodwill, right? So MORryde has warranty, but you know what? If we do something wrong, we're going to stand behind it, okay? Why? Because in my personal life, I want to deal with a company that if they do something wrong, they're going to work with me and be fair and stand behind it. And so as a company, our motto is we go above, beyond, always. What does that mean? We want to exceed your expectations. We want to go beyond what you expect. And we want to do it always, day in, day out. And so yes, we have warranties, and we're going to stand behind them. And then when there's situations, we want you to trust us. Because the best thing I can do from being here is have people like those guys in the back and say, you know what, I got your product, and it's flat out amazing. Because they will tell way more people than we can meet. So we want raving fans. So why MORryde? Because we're going to treat you the way that we'd like to be treated. We're going to treat you fairly. We're going to give you products that work. In this industry, suppliers are famous for products that go warranty plus a day, right? Warranty plus a day. Well, that's so unfair and so dumb, right? What do you want? Build it right so that it works, and then stand behind it. So why MORryde? Because our products work, because we're going to stand behind them, and because we're just you. We're going to treat you fairly, and we're going to just try and help you enjoy the RV so you can enjoy the lifestyle even more. Questions? Yes?
Rotaflux and Anderson hitch.
Okay.
You have to block it so it doesn't flex.
Okay, so Rotaflux is the Lippert pin box. Anderson, how many of you have Anderson hitches? Okay, that is growing a lot. Okay, so on the Anderson, you basically have it in the bed, and then they have the connection to attach the pin. Okay, so you don't have to have a lockout on a MORryde with an Anderson. You do have to have a lockout on a sliding hitch, like a B&W and like a MORryde. Other questions?
Actually, I showed up just a little bit late, but regarding the axles, sometimes you gotta make a really tight turn. You see, you look in the rearview mirror, you look at one tire, it's kind of twisting out. Always the noise and everything.
Yep.
What's like the max you want to have that thing before you get beyond its?
Okay, every one of you has had that, right? Where you're backing in tight, you go like, I'm gonna snap it off, right? Okay, so earlier on I talked about an X-Factor cross member. The cross member goes from spring hanger to spring hanger, and what that does is it provides lateral strength to the frame. And you can do it on one. If you do it on one, we recommend you do it on the center axle. If you do it on two, you do center and rear. And then if you do it on the third one, you go all the way front. The reason the rear one is second is because of that. You're scrubbing tires like crazy, especially on a triple axle. So the cross member is what is going to help that, because we're going to provide lateral strength to the frame. You cannot make that go away because that's just a function of, okay, turning radius and the tires. Now, on an independent suspension, it's way less because you have no connection between the tires side to side. Other questions? Yes?
Double axle, you got your equalizer. My thinking is the weight is equal on each axle. Or is it possible the front axle has more weight on it? I'm thinking it equalizes it because of the equalizer.
Okay, so the center rocker is called an equalizer. His comment is what that does is it makes the weight equal between axles, right? Not quite, okay? So Jim and Rob mentioned something to you earlier. People ask me when I go to places, what's the best money I could ever spend on an RV, okay? And I'm going to tell you, the first thing I would tell you would not be MORryde. The best money you can ever spend on an RV is having your unit weighed, and for $60 by the RV SEF, that is amazing. Like, it's amazing. Because you're going to find out that, guess what? The slide out and the refrigerator and the washer dryer are over here, and this side they're not, and oh, by the way, my unit is not balanced anywhere near at all. What does the equalizer do when you go over a bump? It helps shift weight back and forth. But it does not make it so that it's equal. It shifts weight because if the front is heavier than the rear, the front is still going to be heavier than the rear because you're not changing the location of your weight. Does that make sense? Other questions? Okay, I still have a few t-shirts, so I don't think I've thrown it far back. What? Oh, I haven't thrown it. Actually, swap with me.
Thank you.
Swap. Yeah. Okay, 2, 1. Okay, so thank you for letting us come. Again, if you're going to be at the Alliance Rally and you want work done, reach out to us ahead of time because we will be scheduling appointments and doing on-site installations. And if you have any questions, I'm going to leave catalogs here. I'm going to leave these discount cards from eTrailer. But grab one because literally it'll save you really nice money. Yes, ma'am. What's the next? what's the best way to schedule service, whether it's for MORryde or the rally, is just email sales@morryde.com on the back of that catalog. So reach out to us, and then we'll get it set up ahead of time. Thank you, folks.
All right, thank you, Jack.